Hey there, students. Before Women's History Month is over, I'm going to dive into a lecture series on women in the French Revolution. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at the French Revolution and the beginnings of the modern feminist movement through the eyes of four women: Marie Antoinette, Olympe de Gouges, Mary Wollstonecraft, and Charlotte Corday, and each of them is going to get their own segment. But first, in this segment, I'm going to give you a little introduction, and I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to all the good students at Male High School, that there's a school called that in the 21st century. I wonder how much progress we have made, but this is a good starting point because I'm going to go ahead and talk about opinions and perceptions of women in early modern Europe. And one thing that I want you to remember when you hear the things I'm going to say in this section, all right, there's one word that I want you to latch onto, and that word is messenger. All right, this isn't stuff that I believe or that I'm advocating, but we need to understand, if we're going to understand the modern feminist movement, we need to see where it came from, why there was really a necessity for a reevaluation of women around this time, because really, compared to modern Western views of women, these views are really screwed up. So let's go ahead and dive into this. And let's go ahead and note that the French Revolution, I think that one of the achievements there is equality under the law in France, at least for all men. Okay, but under the old regime, all men were not even created equal. And this is a phenomenon that you're going to see even in U.S. history, that the women's movement in the United States happens after Jacksonian democracy enforces the political equality of white men. So when we look back at the old regime, when equality among men wasn't even something taken for granted, there was really no serious feminist movement in Europe before that. And when you think about it, you've got the nobility, you've got the clergy, you've got everyone else, you've got all of these different classes that are seen differently in the eyes of the law, and it wasn't any different for women, that women were seen as even lower. This is a women's political club being kind of lampooned during the time of the French Revolution, and you see that there's kind of a look of chaos here or something like that. The whole idea that these women who are trying to mobilize politically are not in their proper place is traditionally defined. Because traditional European thought in the early modern period was that men and women should occupy separate spheres, that it was a man's job to be out in public and all of that kind of stuff, and a woman should really be confined to the domestic sphere and should not be involved in politics or decision making or anything like that, because we all know that men are completely rational, right? Men don't make rash decisions or anything like that like women do. Messenger. Now, let's go ahead and talk about Rousseau, who was a French philosopher, a very major figure in the Enlightenment. One of the books that he wrote was called Emile, which is also titled On Education. And in this, he's going into the enlightened education of a boy, Emile. But then he goes ahead and he talks about Sophie, who is a woman that is getting an education. And what Rousseau is saying here is, mother, do not make a decent man out of your daughter, make a decent woman out of her. And he says all kinds of other stuff too, like a woman's central job really is to learn how to please a man, that is her function, is to make a man happy. Now, you can see who's writing the rules here, right? But keep in mind that although the Enlightenment advocated a great deal of rationality and progress and all of that kind of stuff, there really wasn't a lot of serious advocacy of political equality for women by the philosophers. So we're still seeing that even after the Enlightenment, women are still at square one or square zero, or however you want to put that. And here is an early modern view of women, a 17th century engraving from France. And what you can see here is that you see the woman at the front, and the woman looks very beautiful and all of that kind of stuff. But then behind her, part of the same woman, this is kind of what she's concealing, you see that demon sort of thing. I don't know what it's got in its hand there, but you can see its hoof or its hoof, or however you want to say that, that really, although a woman may have a pleasant exterior, she's really hiding a devil in there. Messenger. And you think about the word hysterical. We still use that today, hysterical, when somebody's like all freaking out and all that kind of stuff, like, ah, that sort of thing. And where does this come from? Well, you've heard of somebody getting a hysterectomy. It's really kind of the same thing, all right? So when somebody's being hysterical, when you look at the etymology and all that, what it's really saying is you're acting like a woman. Messenger. And then if we go back to the ancient world and we look at the narratives of the ancient Israelites and the ancient Greeks, both of whom we borrow a lot of culture from, you look back at the story of Adam and Eve and you see here where the serpent tempted the woman. And the man is really kind of passive here. It's really the woman who is the driving force behind original sin. Eve is like, ooh, apple, let me eat that and let me give it to my husband and let me corrupt him. And he's like, no, but then he's like, okay, I'll try it, fine, I'll let you corrupt me or whatever. But this story here really goes into the idea that women exercise a corrupting influence on men, and that's why they have to be kept in their proper sphere. Now, this isn't just the ancient Israelites or biblical history or anything like that. If we look at the story of Pandora's box, we see the Greek version that Prometheus tells Epimetheus, beware, never trust a gift from Zeus. And this woman, she may look so beautiful, but all kinds of bad stuff's going to happen. And sure enough, she's got this box or vase or whatever you want to call it. And it's got all this stuff in there. And it's like, don't open the box. And sure enough, what does the woman do? Exactly what you told her not to do, because men follow rules and women don't. And that's why women have to be confined to their spheres. Messenger. So this idea of women as a corrupting influence is really kind of key when we go into our next segment about Marie Antoinette, the tragic Queen of France, who is really just a woman who is at the wrong place at the wrong time, and she is blamed for a lot of this stuff that happens. And it's the same sort of idea that women exercise corrupting influences over men. So I'd invite you to take a look at the next segment on Marie Antoinette, and I'm hopeful that you will continue to watch the whole series, because I've got 4 women that I'm going to talk about. We're going to talk about the changes in attitudes and all of that kind of stuff and the groundwork laid for the modern feminist movement. So go ahead, click, and go on with the series, and I'll be continuing.